In the chaotic heart of Westbridge High's cafeteria, the air thickened with an electric hush as Aisha Carter's collar was snatched by Jake Harper, the school's undisputed bully, his grip a vice of arrogance. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the room as students froze, trays mid-lift, mouths agape. Aisha's dark eyes, framed by a halo of tight curls, ignited with a storm of defiance. For a fleeting moment, the world held its breath until she moved. With a swift, almost balletic twist of her wrist, she broke free, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Don't you ever fess with me." The crowd gasped, chairs scraping as bodies leaned forward. But what followed, cascade of retribution, would sear her name into the school's lore, unveiling a power no one had fathomed. Aisha was an enigma woven into the fabric of Westbridge's margins. A junior who had arrived a year ago from Jamaica, her presence was a quiet ripple in the sea of teenage clamor. Her accent, a soft cadence of her homeland, drew curious glances, but her solitude painted a target on her back. She sat alone at lunch, her tray of untouched chicken nuggets and limp fries a fortress against the world, her gaze often drifting to the rain-streaked windows. Whispers trailed her like shadows, rumors of a fractured family, a mother lost to cancer, a father drowning in factory shifts. Jake, a broad-shouldered senior with a smirk that masked a fragile ego, had marked her early. With his crew, Tyler, a linebacker with a booming laugh, a cheerleader with a viper's tongue, he turned her into prey. They mocked her heritage, her thrift store blazer, her refusal to bend. To them, she was a weak link, a shadow to crush under their reign. Yet beneath her stoic facade smoldered a secret, forged in the crucible of Kingston's rough streets. To tell the tension had simmered for weeks, a pot ready to boil over. It began with Jake's taunts, exaggerating her accent in the hallways, drawing snickers from his posse. Then came the shoves, the scattered notebooks, the crude graffiti on her locker. "Go back where you came from." Aisha absorbed it, her hands clenching into fists she never raised, her mind drifting to Jamaica. There, her older brother Marcus, a lean figure with a soldier's precision, had taught her self-defense after a local gang threatened their home. His lessons were her sanctuary. Wrist escapes, palm strikes, a whispered mantra or a warrior, Aisha, not a victim. When their family fled to the U.S. seeking safety, she buried that strength, fearing it would brand her an outsider in this new land. Now it pulsed beneath her skin, waiting. That fateful afternoon, the cafeteria throbbed with its usual pulse, trays clanging, laughter ricocheting off the walls, the scent of overcooked vegetables lingering. Aisha sat near the window, her back rigid, her eyes tracing the clock's sluggish hands. She didn't notice Jake and his crew until his hand clamped onto her collar, yanking her upright. "What you gonna do, huh?" He sneered, his breath sour with bravado. Tyler and Mia flanked him, their jeers a chorus, while the room pivoted to watch, some with pity, others with a voyeur's thrill. Aisha's heart hammered, a drumbeat of rage and fear. Doubt flickered, could she risk her future here? But then Marcus's voice echoed, "Fight smart." With a deft twist, she snapped his grip, stepping into a stance honed by years of practice. The crowd inhaled as she glared at him. "Touch me again," she vowed, her voice a low thunder. "I'll personally call your ambulance." Jake lunged, his pride a wounded beast, but Aisha was prepared. She sidestepped, seizing his arm and flipping him onto a table with a crash that silenced the room. Trays toppled. Mashed potatoes smeared his shirt, ketchup streaked his face, as he groaned dazed. Tyler charged, fists raised, but Aisha ducked, landing an elbow to his ribs that dropped him to his knees. Mia hesitated, her smirk dissolving, as Aisha stood tall, her chest rising and falling, her eyes ablaze. The cafeteria erupted, whispers swelling to cheers, then fading as teachers stormed in. Jake was pulled up, his face a mask of shame, while Aisha remained yielding, her secret exposed. Word spread like a wildfire fanned by wind. Videos of the takedown flooded Instagram and TikTok, transforming Aisha into a reluctant icon and a target. Theories swirled. Was she a martial arts prodigy, a gang enforcer? The truth was rooted deeper. Marcus, now a soldier in the Jamaican Defense Force, had instilled discipline and courage in her before their separation. She had hidden it, dreading the label of other, in America, but now it was her shield. The next day Jake, nursing a bruised ego and a sprained wrist, rallied his crew for vengeance. They ambushed her after school near the gym, the dusk painting the asphalt with long shadows. This time it was 4 against 1, Jake, Tyler, Mia, and Chad, a new recruit wielding a metal pipe. Aisha's pulse raced, doubt clawing at her. Could she face this? Her hands trembled, but Marcus's voice steadied her. "You're stronger than they know." The fight erupted like a storm. Chad swung the pipe, but Aisha ducked, sweeping his legs and sending him crashing. Tyler lunged, meeting a palm strike to his chest that stole his breath. Mia faltered, and Aisha disarmed Chad, the pipe clattering away. Jake tackled her, but she rolled, pinning him with a knee to his back. "Nuff," she hissed, releasing him as sirens pierced the air. Someone had called the police. The crew fled, leaving Aisha standing, breathless but triumphant, her strength a beacon. The sirens faded into the night, their wail a distant echo as Aisha stood alone on the asphalt, her chest heaving, the metal pipe glinting at her feet. The gym's floodlights cast her shadow long and jagged, a silhouette of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The taste of victory was bitter, sweet with justice, yet tinged with the dread of consequences. She knew Jake and his crew wouldn't let this go quietly. Their pride was a wounded animal, and retribution would follow. But as she retrieved her duffel bag and mounted her bike, a quiet resolve settled over her. She had faced the storm and emerged unbroken. A warrior, as Marcus had always called her. The next morning, Westbridge High buzzed like a beehive disturbed. Videos of the cafeteria takedown and the parking lot fight had gone viral overnight, racking up thousands of views on social media. Students whispered in the halls, their eyes darting toward Aisha as she walked to her locker, her head held high despite the weight of their stares. Some offered tentative smiles, others glared, their loyalties split between awe and resentment. Jake, sporting a bandage on his wrist and a scowl that could curdle milk, avoided her gaze, but the tension was palpable. His father, a local businessman with influence, had already called the school, demanding action. Aisha braced herself for the fallout, her mind racing with doubt. Would this define her as a troublemaker, erasing the fresh start she'd fought for? The assembly was called at noon, the gymnasium packed with students and faculty, the air thick with anticipation. Mrs. Hargrove, the principal, stood at the podium, her expression stern as she recounted the incidents. Violence has no place at Westbridge, she declared, her voice echoing off the bleachers. Aisha sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly, her heart a drumroll of anxiety. Expulsion loomed like a guillotine, and she wondered if her secret strength had been a curse rather than a gift. But then the doors swung open and Coach Daniels, a grizzled ex-Marine with a limp from his service days, strode in. His presence commanded silence, his gray eyes scanning the room before settling on Aisha. "Hold on," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. "I've seen the footage. This girl's got more discipline than half my ROTC recruits. She's not a thug, she's a soldier." The twist hit like a thunderbolt. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Coach Daniels explained. He had recognized Aisha's moves, wrist escapes, precise strikes, techniques he'd taught in his military days. The revelation stunned everyone. Aisha wasn't just a survivor of bullying, she was a latent leader, her skills honed by her brother Marcus, a soldier in the Jamaican Defense Force. Mrs. Hargrove hesitated, her authority challenged, but Daniels pressed on. "Give her a chance. Put her in ROTC, let her channel that fire." After a tense pause, the principal relented, offering Aisha a choice: join the Officers Training Corps program or face suspension. Aisha's breath caught, her mind flashing to Marcus's proud smile. She nodded, her voice steady. "I'll join." Her transformation began that afternoon. Coach Daniels led her to the ROTC room, a space filled with maps, uniforms, and the faint scent of polish. He handed her a camo jacket, his eyes appraising. "You've got raw talent, Carter. Let's make it sharp." The first weeks were grueling. Drills in the mud, commands barked under a relentless sun, her muscles aching with every step. Doubt crept in, she stumbled over orders, her accent drawing smirks from some teammates. But Daniels saw her potential, pushing her to lead a squad of misfits. Kids like her, overlooked and underestimated. Under his guidance, she found rhythm, her voice growing firm, her movements precise. The scar on her soul, the loss of her mother, the distance from Marcus, began to heal, replaced by a sense of belonging. The tension with Jake didn't vanish. He and his crew watched from the sidelines, their resentment simmering. One evening, as Aisha practiced a drill alone, they confronted her again, this time with a plan. Chad, still nursing a bruised ego, tossed a rock, striking her shoulder. "Think you're tough now?" Jake taunted, stepping closer. Aisha's squad, hearing the commotion, rushed over, forming a protective circle. For a moment, it seemed a brawl would erupt, but Aisha raised a hand. "This ends here," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Jake faltered, his crew backing off, their bravado crumbling under the weight of her newfound authority. The incident reached Daniels, who intervened, forcing Jake into mediation. The bully's apology was grudging, but it marked a shift. His reign was breaking. Months passed, and Aisha blossomed. She led her squad with a quiet intensity, her curls often plastered with sweat, her scar a badge of honor. The school began to see her differently, not as an outsider, but as a leader. At the regional ROTC drill competition in late October, her moment arrived. The field was a quagmire, rain pouring as rival teams from neighboring schools lined up. Aisha's squad, a ragtag group of underdogs, faced a polished team from Crestwood High, their uniforms pristine, their moves rehearsed. Doubt not a her could they compete. But as she adjusted her cap, Marcus's voice echoed, "You're a warrior." She took a deep breath, shouting, "Squad, attention." Her team snapped into formation, their movements syncing with hers. The drill was a symphony of discipline. Aisha called commands: let face, forward march, about face, her voice cutting through the storm. Mud splattered their boots, rain stung their eyes, but they moved as one. Crestwood faltered, their precision unraveling, while Aisha's squad executed a flawless pivot, ending in a salute that drew gasps from the crowd. The judges deliberated, the silence deafening, until the announcer boomed, "First place, Westbridge High." Cheers erupted, students rushing the field as Aisha's squad lifted her onto their shoulders. Tears streaked her face, not of sorrow but of triumph. She had turned her past, her pain, her training, into a purpose, proving strength lies not in aggression but in resilience. Zeta back at school, a ceremony honored her leadership. Coach Daniels pinned a medal on her chest, whispering, "Your brother would be proud." Aisha nodded, her eyes glistening, knowing Marcus would see the news. Jake, now a shadow of his former self, offered a curt nod of respect as he passed her in the hall. The cafeteria, once a battlefield, became a place of quiet acceptance, her tray now shared with friends. As winter approached, Aisha stood by the window, watching snow dust the grounds, her reflection a warrior's, scarred, strong, unbowed. Tacha YouTube outro. Hey, incredible viewers, what did you think of Aisha's jaw-dropping journey? Have you ever stood up to a bully and found your inner power? Share your stories in the comments, we're all ears. If this cinematic tale of justice and redemption blew you away, smash that like button, share it with your crew, and subscribe for more epic adventures. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next story. Maybe a military rescue or a fight for honor. Let's keep the conversation alive. See you next time.